the recording? Great. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Cici, and we'll begin the session.
Thank you, Samantha. Amahila. Good morning, everybody. My name is Cici Sterritt. I'm Gitxsan from the Northwest region, Hazelton area. My traditional name is Noxatzen. I belong to the Whelpsney-Stowe Ganada or Frog Clan, and I'm excited to be here. This was very challenging for me because it's just something that I kind of do, and I hope that you guys are open to a lot of input and feedback. So we can just learn to use these tools that I'm going to share with you. They are not something reinvented. They're available online. And if you just kind of Google, and you can really take them and make it fit your needs when you evaluate or you're monitoring your CCP process. It's challenging at times, but it's a nice check-in to continue to see where you're at with your CCP, and don't hesitate to make any changes. So we can begin. And I do apologize. I would do a round of introductions, but I'm just not sure how much time that we have. So please introduce yourself when you are, when you first, if you have a question or you want to add some input or share anything from your community, that would be fantastic. If we go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, monitoring your CCP can be included with your departments. I previously worked for a number of communities. It became that I assisted those who were in financial challenges. And we really utilize the CCP program to help us move along, because there's when you have financial challenges, there's some major changes that have to occur. And so with the CCP, we were able to continue to work on our CCP, gain input, and kind of work through the changes and communicate what's happening through the program. So as we were doing that, you can monitor your CCP through work plans with your staff. If you're organized to do that. So I know, don't feel bad if you don't have it, but eventually you will get there. But where you can do annual work plans with your staff, or if you have a 5-year work plan and you have strategic planning, whatever it is that you have that can go along with your CCP, and your CCP takes the lead, whether and because that is what the community wanted, and it's our role to implement those. However, they do fit with every single department. It's just how we word them in the background in the programs. And with that, you set SMART goals. So SMART goals, it's kind of everywhere. They're specific, so you have to be clear and specific so your goals are easier to achieve. And what is it that you want to do this year? So meeting with all your department heads, and you ask them, what is it that they want to achieve? How does that relate to your CCP program? And that kind of sets the year, and it's measurable. So what it is that you can track, it allows you to see your progress, whether it's just participation or numbers, or what it is that you're seeing, input that's received. And A for actionable, that you were able to actually achieve the goal. We do not want to set anybody up for failure or put too much on their plate. So they need to be SMART, so brief and achievable. And it lets you, one thing that I find in communities, sometimes we are just go, 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 that we can take a look and say, okay, this was actionable, we did it, and celebrate those successes. And the fourth is realistic, avoid to overwhelm and unnecessary stress and frustration for making this goal realistic. We don't want to say, okay, you have to build 25 houses, although some people have, in like 1 year, and get these people in and da, 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 da. It's a lot unless you have a huge team around it. But maybe that's going to be a goal for 1 year, that everybody works together with the housing department, with the community members, and finalize these housing dreams. It's realistic if everybody is involved. So try not to make it too huge. And And that brings us to the T, so that it's time. You have a year. So this is something that we do yearly. You can do every 5 years, depending on where you're at with your CCP. It's taking those and finding out what it is. And so that's something that's individual, that's your community, but that's a way to measure it and monitor it throughout the year. And then going for the evaluation of your CCP, it's the effort, the effect, quantity, and quality. So we'll go further further down. I think I jumped this slide. So if you want to go to the next slide, Samantha, that would be great. So as I mentioned, it is, monitoring your CCP. You've got your SMART goals. You've got, you've worked with your staff, and it's really challenging at times to report on progress. So it's good to do it quarterly. You check in with your staff to make sure they're not overdone. Are they achieving it? Maybe there needs to be a huge meeting. Maybe they need other ideas. So you're analyzing and you're interpreting the data that has. So for instance, we had to reduce some of the staff in one of the communities I'm at, and it was a large reduction. It was 6 layoffs. So that's huge, and it really impacted the families and is not something that we did. But through the CCP process, we continued to offer other programs. We made sure that the people that they had wraparound services, and we continued to go back and analyze some of the effects of that. And we reported on it. The community members were up in arms saying, "What are you doing? These are our families. These are people." So we were able to continue, okay, communicate what this is. So to balance that out as well, as we want to focus more on cultural language and culture. That's always at the forefront, and people want that. So we continue to push the language and culture aspect of it. And the more that we had those things, we utilize those opportunities to communicate. So it's developing a cycle and to report out, and how you report out is individual. So you can do it in a newsletter, you can do it in little mini workshops, and your participants don't even know you're reporting out, but at least you're there and you're participating, and you can share what it is that's happening in the programs. So I found that it was very helpful for those who wanted to learn how to do cedar weaving, and staff asked if they can participate. So we held it in the evening so they can participate. But it worked out well because they were able to sit side by side with community members. Questions were asked when you're working with cedar. It was reminded to everybody, like, good thoughts are going into what you're making. And so it created a sense of calmness, kind of like what Sandra, how she grounds us in our day. Cedar grounded us in our workshops. And I found that it was very helpful as we moved through the changes in the community, as we implement the CCP. It was very helpful in terms of, I'm speaking from an administrator background. And so it allowed people to take off their staff hats, their community hats, and they were just able to be. And it reminded those people through their healing paths, what it is that they used to do. And that's what was done in the evenings, making hats, making baskets, different things. And it allowed us to ground when we reported back, and we met as a group, as a staff, the people shared, and it allowed us to focus on the positive. So it's really important to go back, and when you meet as a staff, as a group, it can be, we found that a lot of staff members shared if they're having challenges, like, I'm only getting one person to my meetings, or a certain family, what other options can I go to reach out? We have these wonderful things that are happening. And we had a lot of departments partner with either the health department, whether, it's school education, and it kind of blended everything together. And that's what the whole purpose of a CCP is when I mention the wraparound services, it's focusing on the community member. It's not focusing on, oh, this department, this department, this department. We come to, and the community member is the focus. And it's very helpful. And even though we think about it, and maybe only one person out of the 25 benefited or moved forward. The point of the matter is that one person we managed to help and continue. And when the others are ready, they came back. But it's just handing out all those different ideas or options, working together as a team and seeing how we can move forward and work together. So as we go through to the next slide, this is another evaluation. You can see it's on clearimpact.com. So it's looking at the effort, how much services did we deliver? How did we deliver it? Is there something that we can change there? So it's looking at the numbers and the percentages. This is something that we need to report back as always, but it also helps us reflect in terms of what tools we use. And that's the whole purpose of this. We want to share the things that work. We want to share the ideas. It may work at this instance, but it didn't work when we tried to do something a little more, intense, like alcohol and drug counseling or getting, that sort of thing. So how much can we change? How much change did we produce? Like what can we measure? So this tied in with the SMART goals you can take, and it allows you to see what quality of the change you produced. So it's different. And again, these are just tools for you to consider when you're measuring or when you want to assess as you're going through your CCP program, your plan. What is it, right? So these are just some things that you can do. So another example is we had lots of challenges with drug and alcohol abuse in our community. That was our focus for the year, to work on the drug dealers like in the community. And everybody had to be on board in terms of staff, chief and council, the community members who were frustrated with the ongoing ins and outs that drug dealers have. So instead of just attacking and just looking at that, we also arranged our programs to counter that. So FNHA has a lot of healers that they introduced to our health directors, and our health director brought it in. Let's see what we can do here. So we brought in various traditional healers, someone who does Reiki, acupuncture, massage therapist, different things like that. And each came in, and it was a diverse amount. So we had someone who actually, I don't know if you guys know Buckles, Joe Camille, he came in and he's more physical, but having all these different people come in and having the various options for that year, we were able to see who or what the community connected with. So and then that's where we narrowed down the services. The demand was high for certain healers. That's where we prioritized, and it changed. It allowed people to work on their healing journey, especially during challenging times. And we were able to measure, in terms of the participation, the increased drastically on certain healers. So that's the one so there were some measurements that we were able to capture, some attendance, and we saw the difference in the community in terms of sharing what they had, going to more cultural practices, remembering and getting them along their healing paths. We have some who went 2 steps, forward, 1 step back constantly, but it's something that we continued, and it was successful. We were able to measure it, and we continued it the next year. And eventually we did have 2 people, especially one who made the breakthrough, and we were just so excited. So for us, again, it was focused on the people and who we can try and see what worked for each other. So that's one example where you can use and evaluate. So going further, and this is exactly what Jesse mentioned earlier, everything comes back to it seems history. So as I worked in Williams Lake, even though we have everything finalized, agenda set, budgets, budgets are set, we need to remain flexible for life. And as I mentioned here, situation, people, responses are ever changing. We must adapt and bend like the willow branch. So we need to be able to go in whatever direction. We can't be rigid. We have to be flexible especially on the journey that we've had for the last couple of years with the pandemic. So I'd like to open up if anybody has anything to share on different ideas of how they kind of monitored any changes that they made. Please feel free to type it in the chat. I can continue talking on forever, but I'd really like some interaction. Did anybody want to go back to one of the other slides in terms of how to monitor?
Hello.
Hi.
My traditional name is Kuyuksh. My English name is Elizabeth Peters, and I'm from the Lil'wat Nation. On a map, we're known as Mount Curry. And where we're at is that we did a CCP in 2001, and we created one 10-year one. And so it's been a little while since we've gone back to it, but with it, we were able to realize that our youth and elders needed some more attention. And so what we've, since then, actually I was able to help with it too. We now have a youth center and a completed skate park, as well as full immersion in our native language. That is up to, currently it's up to grade 5. Their intention is to make it go up to grade 12. And also our elders have now a second building, all for, how do you say, our elders complex. We've been able to add on to it. And so I guess my question is, do we do like another entire one, considering we're in a different place now? Because that is pretty comprehensive. And I feel like we've been successful a lot, and we also have different issues.
Thank you for sharing. That's just so exciting to hear. You guys managed to accomplish a lot, which is fantastic. And I think maybe it's a revisit to your CCP plan, maybe not create a whole new one, but revisit and see, like, did you complete everything that they wanted to see, right? Is this what your community envisioned? Is there something more that they'd want to expand on? And like this can happen formally in different things, like, or it can happen informally when you have your a workshop or you share a meal with individual families. But just seeing, like, bringing back the document and saying, okay, look, this is a long time ago, but in 2001, this is what you said you wanted. And then we've now created this 10-year one. How do you feel that we're doing? What is it that you like to see? Where would you like us to focus next? So it's like, I raise my hands to you. Like, maybe they're like, you're on the right track. Let's continue focusing, say, on education now and expanding it and going up to grade 12 and focus on that and see when that can be done. Or can see we have lots of, with the recent findings and everything like that, maybe our focus now moving forward should be on healing and focused on that and dealing, giving us some options. It's putting things out there and listening to what it is that they want or where they want to move next. But that's a wonderful checklist to have, what you've accomplished. So congratulations. I know it's not an easy thing. It's exciting. I'm sure they were all excited to go into the new place. So I hope I answered your question. If anybody else has input, feel free to chime in. And so Paul asked to everyone, Paul Miller, nice to see you again. How do you develop useful indicators for monitoring and evaluation? So again, that goes back to the SMART goals and looking at your managers and what it is that you want for the department, or if you have a staff meeting, like in general, where as an office as a whole that you want to move forward. So the direction, can be provided by chief and council, or it can be provided by your 5-year work plan. It's taking those and what are you measuring? What indicators are you measuring? So if we want to, like getting more, the language out there, more fluent speakers. So how, and we have it within the office. So everybody is learning the common, the language of the nation. How many people have learned how to do just the general introduction or different things like that? So Paul, if you can give us something that specific that you'd like to measure, maybe that's something we can take a look at. But in general, it's looking at your SMART goals, looking at the indicators that you have. If you want to reduce the dog population in there, some of these things they seem unreal, but living in community and working for community, it does come from the top, what it is that they want to focus on. You can set your plan for the year. You can do an assessment halfway through. Some things are resolved faster than others, like the pack dog population on some. We managed to, get that curbed a lot sooner than later because it's something that's easier to do, and working with your local SPCA or working with the champion in the community, and finding the dog's home and just creating that to housing maintenance, having, how assisting people in learning how to maintain their houses. What does that, encourage? What having, workshops brought in. So it's like, sorry, Paul, I didn't want to give specifics to the communities that I worked with, but if you have a specific program or something that you want measured, feel free to connect, or if you want to shout something out. I know Paul works for FNHA now, but he wasn't heavily involved with the CCP program, I think, from the very start. So he's the one that introduced me to CCP. Yeah. So he was asking for the crew. Thank you, Paul. Does anybody else have any questions, or do you understand how to use the tools of the graphs and how to measure? Because, you can, thank you. Yes, how to build out the questions for a Survey Monkey. I think if you have a larger group and you get together, because you get the different kind of responses back. So and if you have a community member who's like outspoken and seems like they are never happy, nothing is never enough, or they want to bring them in and help them in the think group that you have for your Survey Monkey. Is there anything that we missed? What do you think? What's your perspective? Because sometimes those people, they have a very different perspective and you guys are saying the same things, but it's just that understanding. And it's taking a look at what it is that you're measuring, what it is that you want to measure. So for Survey Monkey, say you want to assess, we've done everything in our CCP plan. We've injected language into the school. We're fully immersion to kindergarten. Do you want us to prioritize to expanding that, or should we move on? Wait till that gets solidified before introducing more programs? That's the other thing, is taking that time. So if you want to increase participation, asking the questions, that's where you do Survey Monkey and say, what is it that you want from us at the band office? What is it that you want in your CCP program? So when you build questions and you're evaluating your CCP program, you take what it is that you're doing, you state where you are, and the questions can go from there, because it can be something maybe that chief and council are saying, oh, we want to focus on housing. Housing is always a major, major problem. And you need to develop a policy. So you can do a survey monkey for that. It's like, do they understand, in terms of housing, what their options are? You have some communities who just pay for their house insurance. You have some communities and there's no house insurance. So it's kind of like, what is it, what is a priority? And that asking those questions, they may not even care about housing insurance because they don't know. They may just, I just want a working toilet. I just want, to be able to have high-speed internet. So get me high-speed internet. So it's interesting what comes back, but it's just asking and having that open conversation, doing the survey monkey, or, in times like, depending on where your community's at, we had our CCP community person sit in on the different activities that they have, and she just indirectly asked the questions, and the community members didn't even know. And so when she presented it back, they were happy to see some of the comments that they like, hey, that's what we talked about. And that creates ownership. Nowadays, you can do survey monkey for the off reserve if they're hard to reach, or different things like that, but is having that different option on how to engage if they're not happy. And it's looking at that engagement is one of the huge topics. You have a general meeting, and you always have the ones who are strong enough to speak, but we want to hear also from the other ones who are quiet. And then you'll notice that people stop coming because the quiet ones stop coming because, they're hearing the same thing over and over. So it's trying to engage that. And you can, if you need more specific about something else, that's something that you can include in that. Well, I thank you. It's hard to engage, but it's still nice to see everybody. Is there anybody else who wants to share or have a question? I can give another example. Trying to think back. It's challenging, I guess. My background, as I mentioned, I was an administrator, so I've kind of looked like the broader term, and I guess I tend to keep things broad because it allows people's ideas to come in. And if there's something that's specific that the staff or chief and council want to focus on, it's going back to that CCP and looking at it and seeing where it fits. It's taking it off that shelf and say, okay, and you notice that you've managed to do it, accomplish a lot of the things that are in there, but it's like, okay, maybe we want to expand on something. Maybe we want to, work with our neighboring nations and have like an elders residence, like central for the whole entire nation. I mean, that's something that we don't really think of because we're in our own little CCP, but, having elders residence and they can speak to their neighbors or relatives who are next door, then that would be, they find that that's quite helpful, and it might be something that you can partner and look, is that something to explore? Another question is, how can I help people help? You said we can ask the loud ones to feel heard and acknowledge ownership. How, as a youth, can I make these big moves you're speaking of? Just getting involved and connecting with the office, or if you're working within the office, is starting out small, starting with a youth group, your friends, and asking your friends, what is it that you'd like to see? Our CCP is this. What would you like to see? What more can we build on? We have a youth center, but what else would we like? We have immersion. What is it that you'd like to see? And it's it's balancing that and for the quiet ones, and then just building out from there. I'm not a youth. I wish I was, but looking at my sons, it's like everything, they just talk. So as soon as you start with your friends, and then your friends talk to their friends and family, and they bring it back home, and they talk about it some more, and you don't realize, but you've sparked an idea, and then eventually it'll come back to you. And it's getting those voices and bringing them forward in teams. But yes, maybe one day you will be. Don't ever think you can't. And then when you're there, you'll be like, I want to go back, because programming is so fun. When you're in the thick of it, you're in the thick of it, and you're doing it, and you're able to do it, and see the changes, and see the people, and see the smiles. But you're also there for the hard stuff. And as long as they continue to see you there, they know that you'll move on, and that their voices are heard. And you'll find that a lot of people will continue coming to you because you share what they want to share. You share their voices, and that's huge. And that's why we always look for a CCP champion. It's not always someone with the great administration experience. It's more the one who feels strongly and people trust, and you want their voices to be heard. You want to get things done. So we still have quite a bit of time. Do we have, Samantha, how much time do we have? Jennifer?
11:30.
What the resources? So do you mean industry, like in resources, or resources for funding? There's just a question. You spoke a little on resources. Can you elaborate, please? So the resources, and you'll find that in other workshops, that's what they have, like funding and everything like that. When I started, when I started in certain communities, I would bring, and we utilize the resources in health quite a bit, because it is what it is. We have people with challenges. It depends where they are in their healing journey. We have people who, are the lows of lows, the highs of highs. So we focused on that and utilized health funds to offset some of the programs that we were offering in terms of cedar weaving. Like they wanted to focus on regalia. So we did sewing classes, we did cedar hat making, we did cedar making, like just weaving, just in general. We had drumming, just different things, and that, health assisted with that, education assisted with that. So I would combine the departments together and call it community services, because the whole purpose that we're there for is providing services to the community. And that's something that I did not want, our staff to forget. And I heard a lot of, but we've done that before and we didn't have anybody come, or it wasn't successful. So I'm like, okay, so let's try something different. How can we change it up? And so even, everybody went away, and we came back and we brought the discussion. We're going to offer this again, but how can we approach it in a different way? And it got people out of their silos, if they were in silos, and it just helped them learn that they're not alone. They don't have to take all of this on their own, but let's try and think of a different way to approach. So yes, so it took them 30 years to get from the idea of a youth center to actually getting it built, and that's persistence. So I raise my hands to you guys. That sounds beautiful. Well, I see that we have shrunk down, so I think a lot of people went to other areas. Again, if you need to monitor or measure or anything like that, those are just common tools, and you can use them to fit your needs. It's different for every community. So if you need any assistance, feel free to reach out. I'm part of the resource group there. So thank you. I think we'll end it today unless Jennifer, you have any comments?
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Jennifer Chong. I work with Indigenous Services Canada, and we're co-hosting this event with Natsamat. But I think we just have tech support, a note taker, and videographer now, Cici. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time and for doing this and for your PowerPoint presentation. So it says, oh, she's ready. She signed out because her children needed her time, but yeah, it's I think it's good for them to just see a face to the name, and I think that mattered a lot to know that there's, you know, a person, real live person out there who's actually doing the work that they're trying to undertake. So yeah, I really appreciate you doing this workshop. So thank you for all the work of the volunteer team as well. You guys are amazing. So Sadie for notes. That's the grueling, you know, you never get the recognition for doing the note taker, but I want to say thank you now because personally I've done that role many a times at these things, and you know, they're so important. And of course to tech support, thank you so much, Samantha. It's like herding cats, it's been said before, right? So thank you for doing that, and Laura for recording and doing the videographer. Guys, so it's like all
You
you.
guys are so great. Like
yeah.
there's no words. There's no words.
It's great to see you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is